This is an amazing movie. I watched it again recently after seeing it originally in the movie. I think I went with family, kids, dad, and no other time in history was the biggest automaker in the world just give a blank check to one guy to build him a race car to beat another manufacturer in a race. And at the time, you know, it's never happened again because Ford was losing market share. They were trying to appeal to a younger crowd, all the kids that were born after World War II. Mustang was just coming out and they were competing heavily in NASCAR, but everybody wanted that sexy automobile, when the Mustang came out. Chevy was winning the war on that. They had the Camaro. Well, I don't know if the Camaro had come out yet or not, but they had a Corvette and I think the Chevelle and the Malibu, and they had the whole line of sexy cars for people to buy. Um, that's kind of it's part of the point, but it's also another part of the point. Uh, Matt Damon and Christian Bale did an excellent job in portraying Carroll Shelby and Ken Miles. And without Ken Miles, Carroll Shelby would be nowhere. And he understood that. And the relationship between Carroll Shelby and Ken Miles is really delicately and I'm assuming fairly accurately portrayed in this movie. Uh, and the point of this video is to talk about, how intuition and what you're feeling gives you information on what you need to apply pressure to create a better outcome. There wasn't a better driver at the time than Ken Miles. He was the only one that could take that GT40 and make it into something that was there. And Ford actively fought him because Ford didn't see Ken Miles as a public figure that they could rely on to put their model around. They were trying to create an image in the public eye to sell cars. They were in the business of selling cars. So they were wanting to sell sexy new cars to people. And Ken Miles didn't fit that image, but he was the only one that could deliver what they needed, and they needed a win at Le Mans. Such an amazing movie. Um, to be able to, there's one scene in this movie where Christian Bale's talking to his boy, and in the movie, Ken Miles is talking to his son, and who knows how much of this is embellished, and I'm sure most of it's fictionalized. Who knows if Ken Miles actually had that conversation with his son? But he's talking about the resistances that show up in the structure that he's driving. And he said you start running into limits in every part of the car as it goes faster and faster and faster. You're just pushing the limits. And so the brakes, the transmission, the way the car's set up, how if it's gonna stay on the ground, the suspension, if you can handle the corners at those speeds, how much you can push the engine at speeds. You can only push it so far. And so understanding the limits of the structure that you're working in and being able to intuitively read what needed to be addressed on the car to make it perform the way that they did to win Le Mans. Carroll Shelby knew that Ken Miles is the only guy that could do that, and Carroll Shelby was forced to pull himself out of cars because of his heart condition. Such an amazing story. The life of Carroll Shelby is truly amazing when you think about what happened at this time in history. And then Ford ended up winning, Le Mans in 66, 66, and 4 years in a row from 66 to 69, I believe. And then I'm not sure if Ford got out of the Le Mans racing because the GT40, I think, was kind of the last thing. And then not only that, but I don't know, maybe the public, and I haven't looked this up, maybe the public got out of Le Mans racing. Um, just because it was so dangerous. A 24-hour race, you're in the straightaways, you're going 220 miles an hour. Not the safest thing, when you start getting into fatigue, one wrong move and you're flying off the track and you're dead meat. And in the movie, they portrayed quite a few guys probably got seriously injured, you know, trying to pass each other around tight corners and, trying to get ahead in lap times. But so my passion, this is my passion, and I'm sure you guys have your own passions, but to understand the resistances at play that's keeping the efficient, not only efficiency, but um, how we're working together. Think about the resistances in a modern business model, in the corporate model. It's controlled from the center and it's not decentralized in any way. So if there's something happening directly from where you're at, you have no power to change it. And so people just leave. And they, you know, we've built infrastructures because we're trying to control something externally. We build infrastructures to control the actions of other people, and those infrastructures get bigger and bigger and bigger and become more and more toxic, more parasitic, because we're not prioritizing the relationship between you and I over what's being created. This is really important because, and all they are pieces of self-identity that are we're misidentifying ourselves. If we're identifying ourselves with anything external, any external thing, then we slowly lose ourselves in that thing. And almost every business primarily is about making money. But if you don't love what you're doing, your focus won't be on what you're doing and how you're working with other people in order to to blossom that business over time. So that was the story of Ken Miles. He loved racing, every aspect of it, from building the car to running it on the track. And without him, without somebody that loved it that much, that wasn't in it for any kind of fame or fortune. You notice when he lost the job in the movie and they Ford decided to go with another driver despite all the efforts that Ken put into the car, he continued working on the car. This is what I love to do. And eventually they had to, you know, who knows whether or not Carroll Shelby actually put his business on the line to get Ford to put Ken Miles behind a car. But I think ultimately Henry Ford understood what Carroll Shelby was dealing with. You know, there's a scene in the movie where Henry Ford sits him down and says, "Tell me why I shouldn't fire you," because the GT40 wasn't doing well. And he explained, he's like, "You can't race a car by committee. Cannot do it." And this is true in a lot of aspects. You have to let people who are really good at what they do their job because it's what they love, and let them control what their avenue is and what they're good at. Me, I know this for because I'm good at feeling the group, what the non-physical interactions are going and the emotional attachments that are getting the certain outcomes of what we're seeing. You know, if we want to build a group and community that wants to grow together, you have to structure it. You have to create a structure that gets rid of all the resistances and make sure that everything starts at the individual and don't try to control what somebody loves to do. Because a lot of times, for one thing, in the world that we've grown up in, we don't know what we love to do until we get ourselves out there and then figure out what is it that we love to do. And for me personally, it's to, heal the individual and help them understand what their passion is and what it is that they want to create, and then connect people in a way that allows them to do that without being externally forced on some other role from an outside entity. It becomes toxic and you end up losing interest in what you're doing because you're not doing what's best for you. I'm sure most of you can resonate with what I'm saying, but amazing story, an amazing example of how uh, if Henry Ford wouldn't have followed his intuition with Carroll Shelby and Lee Iacocca and continued to work with him, as he explained, he's like, that scene where Matt Damon explains why Henry Ford shouldn't fire him. He says, "We got Ferrari exactly where we want him. Yeah, the car's a piece of junk. We just went 218 miles on a straightaway, and Enzo Ferrari's scared because he knows that we have more power than he does, and we can go faster than he can. All we got to do is make the car go faster." And this is, in a lot of ways, you know, true in a lot of respects of what we have in this country, in America. We have people that have the desire and came from families that desired to leave old toxic systems, but we have unconsciously recreated toxic systems of control that we have the power to walk away from and create something new. But you have to be able to let go of emotional attachments because if you'll never be able to hold on to that old thing and create something new. It's a hard lesson. Um, when a tree dies, if the fruit eventually drops because the tree starves the fruit and it's time for the fruit to drop and then grow something new. And then the tree dies after after so many seasons of dropping fruit. And then finally something new is born. So yeah. I hope this message resonates with you guys. I just want to come on here and talk about how, our intuition is really important. It shows us a path of where we need to ground out our resistances, and it's how we interact with each other. The best way is to be empathic about where somebody's at and then see where their emotional attachments lie. Sometimes it's unconscious to us. We all have blind spots. And so it's nice when we become more aware of ourselves and then one another when we can interact and ground out negative fear-based entities that are worried about something that's going to happen in the future or try to drag something up from the past. It just creates momentum for that thing and it doesn't create something new. You know, uh, Ken Miles had his own battle. He had to create something new despite of what he felt about corporate entities and corporate models. But they gave him a blank check to build his dream machine, and he did it. Um, yeah, can't say enough about that story and the way it was portrayed. It was such an awesome movie. But the point I'm making is that we can always create something new and stay grounded in the present. You know, sometimes it's best just to listen because somebody needs to let go of some things and communicate those things. And then once they can get it out, it's like a weight that got relieved. And then it's like, okay, now what? Now you're at the meditative state, the grounded state, and we can create something new. This has a healing effect because you're able to let go of unconscious momentum. Everything around us, most of the things we see are unconscious, whether it's your desk or this computer that I'm looking at, it's totally unconscious. So it has momentum. We as conscious co-creators have the ability to change momentum much quicker as long as we're letting go of thought forms that tie people into identifying people into temporary states of being. Because those temporary states of being, most of the time, have emotional attachments of something external that isn't them. We're all creators and receivers. So when you think about it that way, we're all creating our own reality. And if we can focus on that and connect and focus on the relationship of the creator and the receiver and structure it that way, then we can create something truly awesome. And I know we will. It's destiny. There's no way that we won't. We're at the end of a long cycle. We're seeing it. Everybody you're seeing internationally, big power brokers and the big power players are making power plays because they're losing some form of control underneath. They're not talking about it, but why else would you try and make a power play and try and get more and more and more if you're not seeing something crumble within your old identity of self and your self security? Security will always ride in your heart because it's the center of your awareness and it's where everything comes from and goes back to. There's only one heart. Love you guys. Have a great day. Simple message, and I'll catch you on the next one.